I've been asked to say a few words about the Winnsboro Cotton Mill Blues. You just heard a recording of the great Pete Seeger singing that song. Some background. The cotton economy of the pre-Civil War South was so completely entangled with the uncompensated labor of enslaved African Americans that with the end of slavery came the collapse of King Cotton, as it was called. Later in the 19th century, worldwide demand for cotton declined, and the South felt the need to industrialize. Instead of shipping raw materials to other mill cities, mill towns started to spring up in the South. One spot was Winnsboro in the Carolinas. The folks who came to these mill towns had been subsistence farmers. They had been accustomed to working very, very hard, but working kind of on the rhythms of nature and growing what they needed to eat or growing what they could trade for what they needed to eat. They suddenly found themselves as wage laborers. And they quickly learned that as wage laborers, they could only sell their wages for what was being offered in these mill towns. And the more workers who flooded into these mill towns, of course, the more demand there was for the work, and the wages would decline. The work itself was drudgery. The mill workers worked really, really long hours for very little pay. Oftentimes, this was work that women were doing alongside men. The economic disruption is one thing, but the movement to these mill towns was also a tremendous cultural disruption. The traditional ways of life that had been in place for decades in the rural South that accompanied the agricultural work were suddenly gone. These mill towns were seen as a place for modernization. And one adjustment to all of this was a move from seeing themselves as producers, producing something that others needed, to being consumers who now worked for a wage and traded that wage for what they could buy. No wonder that this experience would give birth to a blues song, that someone took this traditional blues and set some lyrics to it that reflected the drudgery of mill work, even to the thought of that even when I die, I'm not going to be free of this work. It's going to follow me into the promised land, and I'll still be working long after I'm gone. So I think that's probably enough to get us going for this wonderful setting of inspired by the folk song, the Winnsboro Cotton Mill Blues.
So just a little bit more talking. Sorry, I thought I'd give a little musical introduction and share some words about the music that you're about to hear, because to be honest, it's a little bit strange. First, I'd like to say that Carlin and I actually have a personal connection. Carlin is my daughter. I'm so happy to be playing with her tonight. But we have a personal connection to the cotton industry because my grandfather was a cotton farmer around Austin, Texas. And so my dad grew up pulling cotton, and I don't think at least he never talked to me about what happened to the cotton after that in the mill, and whether they had any interaction with that, I don't know. But the composer here, Rzewski, is really confronting this difficult work situation that Dr. Martin was talking about here, and that we heard Pete Seeger sing about. So in this piece, the factory sounds grow from a distant buzz to a deafening roar. And on the screen, it's kind of bleached out, but you can see some of the main motives that are used. So, gonna sing with me, okay? I'm gonna sing, you sing back. Old man sergeant. Old man sergeant. So you're gonna listen for that da, 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 da. It's everywhere throughout the piece. And then, I've got the blues. I've got the blues. Yeah, you're gonna hear that a lot too. And then also you're gonna hear, Lordy, Lordy, spoolin's hard. Lordy, Lordy, spoolin's hard. great job. Okay, let's listen to one place where we hear that first da 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 da. And then underneath that you hear the I've got the blues motive. And that is actually drowning out the melody much of the time. So it's not like, why isn't he listening to her? He's playing too loud. It's like it's supposed to be that way, okay? Because it's saying the factory's trying to drown out the song in these people's heart. But at the end, you're going to hear the song triumphs, and you hear the song come through loud and clear before we again fade off into the distance of factory sound. So hope you enjoy, or at least can appreciate, Winnsboro Cotton Mill Blues.